Welcome back to our channel. This week in chapter 60 of Kaiju number 8, we have to give another shout out to Matsumoto. First off, he showed us that Captain Ogata is still kicking back, relaxing, and living life. Second off, he showed us through Ihara that it's really hard to live your life comparing yourselves to others all the time. And lastly, Reno is proving my theory true that the white-haired character in every series is the hardest one. Let's get into it. So first things first, we better get a like and a comment because this shirt with this light combination goes crazy. But really starting off immediately whenever we see the cover art, I think that this is going to be a chapter really relating to Ihara and Reno, possibly a training chapter just because they're sitting there, they're sweating, wiping off sweat. What are you automatically thinking? One thing that I find very interesting about this chapter is that this just so happens to be chapter number 60. Now, is it a coincidence that the wielder of Kaiju number 6 is the person that's leveling up in this chapter? Could this be foreshadowing that the person wielding Kaiju number 8 is going to see some massive reveal in chapter number 80? Who knows? Only time can tell. So first page, it looks like we're right. And this chapter is going to feature Ihara and Reno at least. It looks like Ihara's looking off into the distance, actually saying to himself that he's happy that Reno failed that first compatibility test with Kaiju number 6, which is very interesting. But then right after that, he does a quick little haiku slap to the face because he basically knows what he said was weak and vows to catch up to Reno. So we also got to remember that Ihara is quite literally supposed to be like one of the top new recruits for the military or for the Japan Defense Force, whatever you want to call it. Ihara, I remember he was literally in his college supposed to be a powerhouse valedictorian. He also, whenever they first put on their Defense Force suits, I think that he naturally brought out 14% of his suit, while Reno could only bring out 8% of his suit. But kind of how they've been training over time, even just over the times, Iharo's noticed that Reno is leveling up at a much faster pace than what everybody else is. Even if he might have not started out as good as everyone else is, just the abnormal rate that Reno's moving through makes no sense to him and naturally makes Ihara want to compete with him. I think that at the same time, you also really got to respect Reno and his drive to make sure that he can get stronger so that Kafka never has to transform into a kaiju again. Because we quite literally know that every single time that Kafka transforms into a kaiju, he's becoming a permanent kaiju and he can't undo that. So I think that you have to admire Reno, but at the same time, you can see that everyone has their own aspirations. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to defeat Kaiju. So what's a little friendly competition between Ihara, Reno, Kafka, Kikoru, anybody? Friendly competition brings out the best in everybody. So this will be kind of fun to watch this competition just bring everybody to the forefront of their power. So back at it, and we go over to see that our defense force is training extremely hard and zoning off some kaiju to train with. But more importantly, we see that boy Reno in the full Kaiju number 6 suit. And tell me my man isn't swaggy as shit. He looks so clean in this suit. And it's literally the same vibe as the general director. It's just that obviously it's the Kaiju number 6 instead of the Kaiju number 2. And then we also see Haru standing there, and he's basically standing right next to Reno and then thinking to himself, wow, this suit's power is not even emitting yet I can already feel all of the cold energy or just like the cold air coming out of this suit right now. Which is also Matsumoto in his bag because that's some dope foreshadowing, because if we go all the way back earlier in the series, I don't remember how many chapters ago it was, but remember Reno was switching out his bullets from explosive bullets to freezing bullets because he said that it better suit his style. So now I'm curious as we get later in this chapter, is this whole suit style going to be something that has to do with freezing? Things then pan back over to Captain Ogata, and it's honestly safe to say that Captain Ogata is very quickly becoming one of my favorite characters in the series, and he's really giving me Shikamaru vibes, how he's always just feet kicked up, relaxed, because he knows what can we do? Regardless, at the end of the day, Kaiju number 9 is going to attack. We're going to have this war with the Kaiju. All we can do is keep on preparing these surprise factors, and Reno's doing a good job at it. He goes on to just kind of talk about how he threw this task of tackling Kaiju number 6 at Reno as something that he never really thought that Reno could do, but not only has Reno attacked this task that he basically threw at him, but he surpassed anything that he thought Reno could do. Reno's basically controlling the suit now and goes on to basically say like Reno's a goddamn prodigy of this series at this point. And after he calls Reno a prodigy, I have a very weird theory, but I think that Reno could very well so end up being the next general director. I don't necessarily mean that he's going to be like the next general director, but almost kind of like he's up next, where at some point in his career he will end up being the general director. He just kind of has that vibe about him that where people gravitate towards him. Kafka gravitated towards him in the beginning of the series, as well as like Iharu's gravitating towards him. He has this natural pull about him, as well as the fact that he is progressing at this abnormal rate that I really could see him being the next general director in his time. So then we get back to it and we see Captain Ogata basically calling over to Reno, telling him, hey, like, you're up next. You're basically up against a mold type kaiju. It's a kaiju that's been emerging in the area roughly every 5 years since the first showing up in 67. It has a fortitude level of 6.4. If you prove unable to handle the job, then I'll step in and neutralize it. Now then, it's time to see if you're really the right officer to be number 6's user. Show me what you got. And at that point, the operation to neutralize this kaiju basically begins. So then right as soon as basically Ogata tells them that the mission is ready to begin, Reno takes off immediately. Iharu is shook by how fast Reno takes off. And once he sees how fast Reno takes off, he basically says, I have no time to waste. Like, I got to catch up too. At the same exact time, we also see Reno going to a little flashback of Ogata telling Reno, hey, because of how dangerous this suit is, it basically takes away at your life every single time that you use it. So right now, I'm only giving you 10 minutes of maximum time to use this suit while you're at the trial. So you kind of see this rivalry, I can't talk once again, where Reno's trying to make sure that he can go ahead and show that he's able to use this suit so that he can keep on getting stronger for Kafka, while at the same time, Ihara is trying to show that he can keep up with Reno, like he can keep up with the big dog. So we see Reno charging through the forest, ready to attack, and the kaiju actually pulls up in front of him. As he's going to attack it, he essentially loses control of the kaiju suit and he unleashes freezing powers to his foot on the ground, and his foot essentially gets stuck to the ground. So Reno's like, oh shh. And as that's happening, Iharu pulls up because, of course, like I said, he's not going to let Reno get away. He's trying to keep up with Reno. So Iharu shoots a shot at the kaiju and it actually knocks it off of balance. And Iharu is hyped. He's like, I can do it. Like, I can keep up with Reno. I can shoot with just as much force as. And as he's saying that, Reno frees his foot, turns and completely demolishes the kaiju that all Ihara could basically do was just knock it off of balance. So then right after Reno gets done demolishing that thing and knocking it off to the side, he immediately basically goes up in a tree, uses his suit powers to freeze his feet down to the tree so that he's standing above that kaiju, and just shoots the thing from above and demolishes it. Exactly as this time is happening, for some reason, for like the third time this series, Iharu has forgotten that he is not a reader of this series, but he is a participator in war, and there is a kaiju actually pushing towards Iharu. But then Reno, because once again, he's the white-haired character and he's the coldest character in the series, no pun intended now that we know his new powers, but comes in and on some like Sub-Zero shit is like, thanks Iharu, you helped me keep my cold. Help me keep my cool. And next thing you know, he just goes ahead and shoots the kaiju with all those freezing bullets and freezes a thing in air. And it's awesome to kind of see how Reno is at like one of his like highest moments in training, while at the same time we see Haru on the ground being protected and he's at one of his lowest moments. And the chapter ends with that panel right there, and Ihara was basically saying like, Reno, don't leave me behind. So it was a really cool ending to a chapter, because it's awesome that we finally get to see like a time skip, only like a quick 1 month time skip, and Reno's came this far in 1 month. Like, who knows what this suit is fully gonna be once Reno can use this to its full capabilities? I can only imagine. But at the same time, I can't help but feel sorry for Iharu, or not necessarily sorry, but it just kind of sucks that he doesn't understand that he's just comparing himself to somebody that he doesn't need to compare himself to. Iharu needs to get better for himself, so it'll be interesting across the series to see if Iharu kind of learns that he can only train and get better for him. He can't train to be better than somebody else. He can only train to be better than himself. And obviously it'll be crazy, like I said, to see Reno once he fully powers up that suit. That was only a month of training, so I'm interested to see where we go after this. But other than that, I ain't got nothing else. I'm out of here. You know that we back. You know that we back. It's that Kaiju attack, you know that we back. What's good, gang? It's Dalton, back here. This is just a trial video, bitch.